Hello and welcome to the Unofficial Controller Podcast, your weekly gaming podcast, episode 122. Sir Mike Rouse tells us everything you need to know about Anstream. With me, George, and this week, as I say, joined by Mike, gaming AAA lister to my opening of a quick save in Mansfield. Sir, how is it going?
Amazing. I'm amazed I'm still a sir. I thought that's was a transitional title.
Absolutely not. That's yours. It's attached to you for life. It's not transferable to children. It's not a hereditary title. But that's something you can work towards.
That's okay. I don't think my kids deserve that anyway.
I think they do.
Oh, okay.
Lord and Lady Rouse, I can see it now. The Honourable. Before we get lost in Piers Peerage for the UK, little bit of an update on the law. Last time you came to see us, it was in America, which was wonderful of you to join us over there in the States. This time you've joined us at Ponsonbury Manor, the country pile I've inherited. As I've become, last week it was the 9th Duke Ponsonbury, now it's the 13th, I don't know, but welcome to the smoking room, Victorian smoking room.
Thank you.
Hopefully the refreshments provided should bring you fine fettle.
Yeah. It was a little troublesome getting here.
Okay.
Not going to lie. Held up by youths, I think they're called, who sheathed their heads in cloth. And held up for my valuables and any white lightning that I had. So now troublesome on the carriage down here, but
sadly, I think what you actually stumbled onto there was the Assassin's Creed cosplay festival taking place in the village.
That explains the dagger in the ribs that I'm walking around with.
And the taking of the funds. That's not allowed, so we need to get that redressed. And as for the White Lightning, I don't know whether that's allowed in the Assassin's Creed, but I don't know.
Right.
So I will execute my right as a lord to make sure you get your things returned to you. And an apology, because no one messes on a Knight of the Realm in Farmerton.
Excellent. Good to hear.
I shall take a sip on my fine bone china and I shall ask you, well, let's give them a rundown. Coming up, we've got the news in there, a nugget of news. And the best thing about the news is we get the inside brain. We get the inside track from the man, the mighty Sir Mike Rouse. And then we move into the feature, which this week is an interrogation or really more of an insight into the world that is Anstream. If you like games, if you like zero investment, but you want a library that rivals Mike's physical library, I think you're probably looking in the right place to find out who, when, where, and how. And that's over to the mighty Rousemeister when we get there. Before we get to that, though, obviously, then the mighty Stingray rips down the drive. He pops his boot. We ogle like collectors at some of the rare finds in there and then talk through the new releases for every format. I had to pull the Stadia one out today because I couldn't find a write-up, so apologies to the Stadia listeners. I'm sorry, I know you're fighting for every bit of skin you can get. And then I ask you what you're hoping to play for that gaming week, Mike. But the show cannot begin. So Mike Rouse, let me doff my cap, down on one knee. No, it's not for that reason. I ask you what you're hoping, what you've been playing.
I have been playing Eastward. I don't know if you've come across that game on the Nintendo Switch.
Oh, no. No, then I haven't, because I was about to ask you about the Fox game on Mega Drive, but that's not it, is it?
That's not. That's not
Tanglewood or something.
They share pixels and colors in common, but apart from that, they're very different games. So Eastward is a modern role playing game, but done all in kind of 16-bit pixel graphics.
Oh,
yes. They've even got inside the game another role-playing game that you can play, which is an 8-bit role-playing game. So it's a role-playing game within a role-playing game.
Oh my goodness. Why has this never crossed my radar before? Is it only on Switch or is it on other formats?
I don't know. I imagine it's on other formats. But Eastward, that's what you want to look out for. I'm enjoying it a lot.
Wow, it sounds great. It sounds a little bit like those sort of PSVR experiences where you play in the 90s through the medium, but in VR. It's I can't remember the name of it now, but they're also great games. And if it's anything like that, I want a slice of it.
Yeah,
what sort of world is it in? Like fantasy or?
dystopian, colorful future. So I haven't finished the story yet, but essentially you start off underground, and the people underground don't realize that they can go above ground. They think it's polluted.
Wow.
You play a guy who finds a girl who's from a different era, and you kind of adopt her as your daughter. And it's about their adventure and this is not a spoiler, but they quite quickly break out into the overworld and realize things are very different up there. So it's kind of a dystopian future, but not one where everything's gone to hell.
I love having my eyes open to new stuff. I really hope I can't see it being on Vita, but if it's on a PlayStation that I can maybe get the remote play working on. That's one thing I've been thinking about. Setting the PlayStation 4 up, plugging the Ethernet into it right next to the router, no HDMI at all, and using it just as a remote play slave. The PS4 Pro just took down there, just beasting away, beaming stuff down to me. I don't know if that's a nice thing to do. What else have you been playing? Anything 16-bit?
A lot of Mega Drive. So every time I get a Mega Drive game, I play it, get a good couple of hours in. But I've been playing a lot of Demons of Asterberg.
Yeah.
Do you know that one? So that's a new 16-bit game for an old console for the old Mega Drive. So I've been enjoying that.
You've been having a run of these, though, haven't you? I mean, do you class them in a full PAL set, or do you see those as curios?
Yeah, they're definitely curiosities. Although now I've got them, yes, they're part of a full PAL collection.
Joe Smith in 2014 thought you had a full PAL set. Guess what? PAL business just picked up. You know about the cans. You know about this now.
Yeah. And then, interestingly enough, I've been playing some Russian bootleg games that got sent to me. And one of some of them are terrible. They've just played. There's an Assassin's Creed one where they've just changed the splash screen, and actually it's Crusader.
It's close.
It's close.
It's close. Sort of thing Stingray would do. It's beautiful.
Yeah, and then but there's one that I'm very impressed with, which is Commandos. Remember the PC game Commandos? It was out on PS2.
Yeah.
They ported that to the Sega Mega Drive. And
wow.
It plays like Commandos on the PC. I mean, less visuals and you can't zoom it in and out, but you can.
Are they using the sprite sets or have they redrawn?
I think they're using the sprite sets from the
just
PC.
Sort of ramp them back down in a Donkey Kong Country style to get to the point where it's going to run on a 16-bit machine. If only more people were doing that then, I think there could have been some real, at the time, because the Mega Drive never really got its. People say, "Oh, Vector Man's its Donkey Kong Country." I look at Vector Man, I'm like, nah. No. Vector Man is using the same idea, but is not even close to what Donkey Kong Country is doing.
Yeah.
Could the Mega Drive ever have pulled? If someone sat down now and used all the computer crunching abilities and drew some sprites at 4K and crunched them down to goodness knows what 12p, could the Mega Drive pull something out the bag that would set jaws on the floor like then? I know you've had your Papyrium or whatever it is, and that looks great, but it's probably not approachable for most people. Do you think we're going to see something that can really make the Mega Drive sing?
Yeah, I think oh gosh, what's the game called? It's a role-playing game that I absolutely love and can't remember. Story of Thor.
Yes.
Story of Thor.
Great game.
I think if you were a Super Nintendo fan back in the day, I think you would look at that and without knowing it could insist that was on a Super Nintendo and that it wasn't possible to do on a Sega Mega Drive.
One on the subject of people releasing games for older systems, one of the systems that often gets games released for it's the Dreamcast. And, still quite an active scene there, a little bit like the Mega Drive, though I think the Mega Drive's probably took the lead recently unless you've just opened my eyes to the more of them. But this feels like the Dreamcast's momentum's dying down a little bit. But one thing you never see, when the Dreamcast was out, you had games like Shenmue, Metropolis, Street Race. But when people make a game for a system in the past now, they never quite go to those. We don't see a Metropolis Street Racer. We don't see a Shenmue. Why don't we see that level of production? Is it because they haven't got their hands on the dev kits from then and they have to kind of make something work on an emulator and this is about as good as it gets? It's another side-scrolling shooting game. Or am I missing something, Mike? What am I missing here?
I think, I mean, those developers are missing the millions and millions of dollars it took to make those games.
But I wonder now with modern facilities.
I think it's still the same. I think it's the same thing. It's the same amount of effort. I think the thing we have to remember is that when the move to PlayStation 2 and to Dreamcast at that point, it's no longer a case that the modern techniques that we got now give us an advantage on that console, because those modern techniques are the same kind of techniques we're using now. So, the effort to create those games are no different than if you wanted to create a game, a modern game. Now, in fact, it's probably a little bit harder because nowadays we have dedicated tool sets that allow us to do custom shaders, and the shaders are dynamic, so we can add damage, and it's just a slider.
Yeah.
Back then, you'd have to paint the texture and then write the code to do a texture swap if it was kind of swapping out damage.
Yeah.
And so I think, the PS2 and the Dreamcast and the N64, they're time-consuming consoles to develop new games for. And I don't
So what you're saying is my dream of you getting a 486 off the black market and a PS3 dev kit and giving me another slice of Harry Potter with Move is probably it's not happening, Mike, is it?
Well, let's be positive. It's improbable. Not impossible.
I live in dream. I see a Kickstarter coming up. It's a phenomenon.
Yeah.
So these 16-bit, for the most part, Russian bootlegs have kept you kind of on the edge of your seat. Is anything else stuck in your periphery, or is it? I mean, that's a full platter, if you don't mind me saying.
It is. No, that's it. That's all the time I've got after creating YouTube videos and having to turn up to work and punch my card. That's kind of where I'm sitting at the moment.
Even a knighthood doesn't keep you from the slog of the 9 to 5, sadly.
Unfortunately, not in modern times. Then it doesn't take you far. People don't seem to care as much.
Yeah, you'll show them.
Yes.
Quickly run through to keep you in the loop about what I've been playing. I've been actually, the kids had a sleepover on Halloween, and they're in the retro room. So there was a round robin of NBA Jam on a 32X. Is that the best version? I
do like it.
Some of the charm of the 16-bit is gone for the sake of some very large heads that don't really fit bodies, but they do scale. Scale, and it plays probably as good. Although I think the original Mega Drive is just a bit snappier. I don't know why. Again, what a waste of the 32X's potential. And with that, there was some Mortal Kombat and some Street Fighter, all the usual sort of fun bits and bobs. And then had some more time at home, so I was able to tuck into the delicious. Well, no, we'll start here, actually. The interesting NBA 2K21 on PS5, so the next-gen version. Had a little go on it on Series S on Games Pass and got it for the PS5. It's fun. It's not everyone's cup of tea, I'd imagine. I've been sucked into it. I mentioned to you off air because I watched The Last Dance on Netflix, which maybe then all of a sudden want to. This is something that we used to do. And reference to your Assassin's Creed comment, when you then found out it was Crusaders. As a kid, if I couldn't get the toy or game that I wanted, I would make up my own story through the closest game I had at that time. And sometimes that was a stretch.
Yes.
Sometimes that was a big stretch. So in a way, we're still guilty of that. Can I blame that Russian guy? Not really. Sounds like a fantastic port for Assassin's Creed to me. At least the setting's kind of right.
Yeah.
So I played some of that, which is wonderful. The presentation values on those games is incredible. Some of the periphery stuff I'm not so keen on. I actually think MLB and Sony probably handle it slightly classier. But we're splitting hairs at this point. And then the other one is the sexy Guardians of the Galaxy.
Ooh, that looks good.
I've got a few things to say about it. Everyone's raving about it, and I understand why, because I'm enjoying it. But what frustrates me is I really enjoyed the single player component of Marvel's Avengers game last year, the one that was the alleged dumpster fire. Like, I understand that the multiplayer and stuff didn't work, and I do understand that some of the mission types were a bit repetitive because of what you were having to do as the game model required it. But when you were left to your own devices and there was some evolution of story in exactly the same graphical style as Guardians of the Galaxy, they really feel like they're in the same universe. And I think that's a good thing because they could then bring them into Avengers if they wanted to. And I think there's something that could grow out of Avengers because this Guardians of the Galaxy, it's doing nothing new. People are going to hate me for this. It's doing nothing that hasn't been done before. So I see a forerunner of the game as Jedi Fallen Order, the transition in the ship from planet to planet, the conversation with the crew. It's a bit more Mass Effect-y in this one, but for the most part, really enjoyable. Looks great. Like I say, it's not setting the world on fire with some of the mechanics it employs, but it's doing them really well. And the combined whole produces something that's enjoyable. And actually, do you know, I don't mind that it's not the cast from the film. I've moved on within 30 seconds because I'm buying into the voice work that's being done and the motion capture and the fact that these people feel alive. In fact, it's one of the first times since getting the PS5 where a game's lived in my periphery. When I'm not playing it, I'm like, oh, I wonder what they're doing, because I wonder what's going on in that game. I really want to get back into that. And, when you do, it's like, oh, yeah, it feels good to be here. And you get that sort of warm vibe. Every now and then, a game really lifts me. And I've been realizing that I've been a bit burnt out on games. That whole sort of big game routine. I've stacked myself up with some monstrous games during lockdown and all of that, and kind of got spat out the back end of it. Probably in the honeymoon period of the PS5 kind of waned, as all things do, and then you're like, oh, and this game's just sort of, oh, it's a multi-format as well, so everybody gets to enjoy it. So it really is. Can't say enough nice things about it, really.
Sounds great.
Yeah. I suppose people know the direction of the show would know that we're probably now about to head in the direction of news. We've scoured the very darkest regions of the internet to bring you the latest stories. First up, on the subject, one would almost think this show was woven together with the finest of tapestry cottons. Unfortunately, it's a little bit of chewing gum that's collected some dust and a rather strange-looking circular hair. No idea where that came from. I don't really want to investigate too much. The news that we find ourselves in. I'll take the first one, Mike. It's Square Enix Smash. On the subject of Square Enix boss Yosuke Matsuda has insinuated that Tomb Raider developer Crystal Dynamics may have been the wrong studio for Marvel Avengers. Speaking as part of an alarmingly candid annual performance report via VGC, the executive assured shareholders that the publisher had learned from the disappointing superhero release and suggested it would be better match game designs for developers moving forward. Crystal Dynamics, of course, is perhaps best known for its brand of Naughty Dog-style action-adventure games, but Marvel's Avengers represented its first foray into the divisive games-as-a-service scene. Taking on the games-as-a-service model highlighted issues that we are likely to face in future game development efforts, such as the need to select game designs that mesh with the unique attributes and tastes of our studios and development teams, Matsuda said. He continued, while the new challenge that we tackled with this title produced a disappointing outcome, we are certain that the games-as-a-service approach will grow in importance as games become more service-orientated. How we go about creating new experience by incorporating this trend into our game design is a key question that we'll need to answer going forward. That's going to be a difficult reading for the poor old Crystal Dynamics team. The latest Marvel Avengers saga saw the developer add XP boosting microtransactions to the title's in-game store, which have since this week been removed. Crystal Dynamics still has content promised for the title, including Sony's controversial console exclusive Spider-Man add-on, which is due out later this year. Meanwhile, the California developer has been tapped up by Microsoft to assist on its new Perfect Dark title. So busy days down there, but not exactly a glowing report card from the head teacher, Mike. How would you feel if you flogged your guts out on that, or do you think the team kind of knew that their asses were a little bit exposed on that one?
I think they're probably very upset. to hear that news. I know about that title and its development. I know a couple of people that are working on it, and been in development for a long time. And for some of those people, it was a project of passion, and also a very hard project to make. Right? How do you make a game where one of the characters can fly anywhere and do anything?
Like I say, I'm hoping Guardians of the Galaxy can pour more light onto Avengers, because there's some really good bits in there that people overlooked. Like, I know it's a bit mismatchy in the multiplayer, and when I played it through, I was looking for story characters, and I made up in my mind an excuse for this, right? And I probably shouldn't have, but I was going to look for story characters to unlock in the game, except the game refused not to put that person on my team. So we end up looking for a character who's on our team, helping us look for himself, which I excused, because for the most part, I felt like it was when they were allowed to do what they are good at, it was phenomenal.
Yeah.
But I don't know how you can convey that through a games as service model and make everybody happy, shareholders, gamers, your own creative passion. Like, how do you find that happy medium?
It's very challenging, and these games aren't getting cheaper. So the games as a service model is currently the best way to fund the exorbitant cost it makes to make these games. So and I think that's probably what developers are struggling with at the moment. We know how to make great single player and multiplayer titles with a single story arc in them. But transitioning and trying to bring in the kind of replayability into it, and then sometimes shoehorning that into some of these games is proving to be a real headache for some developers.
The actual idea that I thought, having played through the one-player version of Avengers, was that there were going to be Avengers-type scenarios taking place. Like right at the end, there's a little post-credit Easter egg that suggests that there's an invasion coming. And I know they're probably trying to get some more Avengers lined up to the roster, but the momentum of that one player sort of like, that could have washed into it more and pick up little seeds as you go through, and then boom, there's a big event, and it's like, this is the moment. This is the reason I really glad I stuck with Avengers.
Yep.
It just seems like the conveyor belt that brings us that good news has been turned right down.
Yes, indeed.
But hey, sad news for them, because as I say, I think within that there are some really bright lights. Next bit of news. It's normally tradition that you would read this, Mike, but as a Knight of the Realm, it's completely up to you.
I don't think this is the medium, though, where I can do this through interpretive dance, is it?
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Do you like video games, podcasts, and reminiscing? I'm actor, video game writer, and total sweetie pie Connor Savage McCabe, and on each episode of Call Me By Your Game, I sit down with a guest for an intimate look at a special game from their past. Did you and your dad beat Spyro the Dragon over the holidays? Or was Halo 4 the one thing that united your roommates during your senior year of college? Stories like these are what Call Me By Your Game is about. From video game content creator Janet Garcia to Hades voice actor Courtney Vinay's, I interview wonderful comedians and game industry friends about these memories. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts, and maybe someday you'll call me by your game.
So, Mike, however, you shouldn't have said that, because however you want to express yourself, it is an audio format. Okay.
Right. Let's do this. Double Fine causing the exterminators. Sounds like tragic news, but it's not, because Psychonauts 2 is one of the best games of the year, and it's just got even better. Deceiving headline there. Double Fine has released a new update that not only brings in a few bug fixes, but also introduces a selection of quality life improvements. The update will prove useful for any collectible hunters out there who are still tracking down a handful of figments. Features such as checkmarks appearing next to the locations in your journal when collectibles have been collected, and a photo filter to weed out any missing ones in the environment have been added.
That's cool.
Yeah, not bad at all. You can also see all available figments in your journal now, along with being able to visit Otto's lab to enter a fighting arena and pick up any missing combat achievements you may need to obtain. Do you want a rundown of the new features?
So, Mike, any chance to give your words airtime is very much appreciated.
Well, let's go through these new features on this fine game. It's we've got a bonus psychosizometer. Is that right?
Do you know what? So I think Double Fine can make up these devices. They don't expect people like you and me to say them, do they?
Well, you've got whatever that is
Yes.
unlocked in Otto's lab after finishing Gizu's quest.
Go with it.
Yeah, making it possible to unlock enemy achievements during the post-game state. Check marks appear in locations, selection menus to indicate if all collectibles in a location have been found. Otto Spot Photo Filter is shown collectibles in the Otto Shot Photo mode, and show all available figments in the Figment Viewer menu, even if you haven't found them yet. So exciting news there for Psychonaut 2 fans, I think.
I haven't got round to having a go on Psychonauts 2 yet. Have you?
I have not. Do you know, I think it's one of those games that a lot of people I speak to, we've always wanted, and now it's here. It's kind of like, oh, excellent. I'll get round to that at some point.
Yeah, it's another big win for Games Pass, I suppose. It's one of those cult classic games, I think, Psychonauts. That has association with the Xbox brand, although I think you can get the original on PS2 from memory.
Yes, that's true.
A very well put together game. The sequel, equally probably as versatile. And it does interest me to see things like this getting a run out, and fair play to Microsoft and Double Fine for giving it a run out. Fans have asked for it for ages. The danger with a game like this is it could all go a little bit Shenmue 3. But Psychonauts has gone down certainly a lot better than that shade of Ryo Hazuki.
Yes.
Transmittable disease. It's probably poor old boy.
Double Fine know their craft.
Yes.
They are. Have you ever played Stack'em?
Oh, what's that on?
That is on the PS3.
That rings a bell.
It is a beautiful. It's one of my favorite games by them, and so few people have played it. But basically, it's the Russian dolls, and you go around and you're finding all your Russian doll friends, and then they stack inside you. But it's your family. You're finding your family as you go around. But
that's beautiful.
Beautiful game, absolutely amazingly executed. So if you ever get a chance to play that, I can absolutely wholeheartedly recommend it.
Well, let's look at this. You're right on the headline, but that's what we do at the Unofficial Controller podcast. We use the Sun headline simulator, and the word bug was seen, and exterminators, but knowing that a double negative makes a positive, bam, that's where that headline came from. Place a good feeling.
Yeah, I feel excited.
That's what this show will do. It's almost as close as a death run, a black run down a mountain in the Alps, blindfolded. It's that sort of level of adrenaline rush, Mike, that not many people sign up for twice. I'm a burnt out husk at 122 episodes. I really don't know how you do it. Right, this last bit of news. Grip tight onto that bar because the blood's about to drain from your fingers. Overlooked. Blizzard's latest investors call has revealed the company is now planning to launch Overwatch 2 and Diablo 4 later. I called this when they called it. If you remember, they announced Overwatch 2 when they needed to get the heat off themselves because there's some bad things going on in the studio, and all of a sudden Overwatch 2 crawls out of nowhere. Oh, look at this, everybody, look, over here, shiny thing. Don't look at the terrible thing. Never ready. Never even close to being a game. Early this year, Activision Blizzard ruled out 2021 release, and now Blizzard wants to give both teams even more time to ensure these anticipated titles will be in the best possible state at launch. Probably didn't even start getting the crayons out until it was a day after it was announced. Some guys like, what? How good are you at CGI? Oh, I'm all right, boss. Yeah, what are you thinking? I need this by the morning because we need something now. Crikey. Anyway, the two of the most eagerly anticipated titles in the industry, and our teams have made great strides towards completion in recent quarters, but believe given the teams some extra time to complete production and continue growing their creative resources to support the titles after launch, will ensure that these release delight and engage their communities or years into the future. These decisions will push out the financial uplift that we expected to see next year, but we are confident this is the right course of action for our people, our players, and the long-term success of the franchise. What's your thoughts there, Mike? What does the industry say? That game, I honestly feel like that game wasn't even considered. A lot of the fan base didn't know why Overwatch 2 was coming out when Overwatch 1 was meant to be an evolving product.
Yeah.
And now they've committed to Overwatch 2, which feels...
It's a bizarre thing to do because they must know that by announcing a game while you've got a games as a service running could almost kill the current game that you're working on.
Which I think it very nearly did. But then the longevity of this one's gestation is probably breathed life. I'm so far removed from Overwatch. My co-host, Tom, he still plays that game. I never saw the appeal. He whinged at me. I downloaded it. I played it. I tried it. I really tried. But it's not for me.
Yeah. I share your concerns that this was they had a bad news day. And
they really did, didn't they?
Yeah, yeah.
Like what on Twitter, what's our most popular thing? Hashtag what? Hashtag Overwatch. Right.
Yeah.
2. Boss, that's not on the do it now.
Yeah. These types of games take 5 years to make.
Yeah.
So, I mean, for them to say that there was going to be a release, I think I doubt we'll see it next year or the year after.
No, I don't think so. I agree. I think the people that were most surprised by the announcement were probably the studio that made the game.
Yes.
What? Overwatch 2? Oh, he's being serious.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Mike, you've been in and around the industry. Is that something that happens a lot when an overarching studio owner or a publisher goes, yeah, we need a sequel. And the people that make the game are like, a sequel? We haven't even finished the first game.
I've not been part of that, but I can imagine it happens, especially if there's shareholder reasons for doing it with some of these bigger companies. I think some of the conversations happen at the top level, maybe with the top level of the studio, and the team may not know about it. And that can be pretty demoralizing. Or you've painted the team into a corner by doing that. But it certainly does happen where a team won't be aware that they're doing something, and then they'll read about it in the news. So I think it's less and less of an issue. The worst thing that used to happen, definitely during the 90s and 2000s, was you'd hear about your studio closing or your company closing down from reading Eurogamer.
That's just savage, isn't it?
Yeah.
Normal day at work, halfway through your lunch break, reading your favourite little copy of Eurogamer. Huh. Probably better clear the desk out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Do you think times have solidified a bit more? Obviously, studios still go pop, and studios still probably only one game away from their next big success, but sadly only one game away from their next big critical failure. Every time you put something out there, there's a risk it might not go down very well. Does that sometimes bring concern into the creative process, do you think?
It's always been there with games. The business model is a harsh one, isn't it? It's you're making no money until you finish this thing. So where most, a lot of people's work is like, I'm selling something and then I'm making money and that keeps me going and it's constant. With games, you haven't got that. And I think the most disconcerting thing is when you've got a very ambitious game and you're looking at 2 or 3 years, but you've got to make the money you have last that long.
Yeah.
And this is where, when we look at a game and we critique it, it's like, it's not as good as it could have been, or it doesn't feel that great. And that's often down to the fact that they've had to try and make that much money last for, that period of time.
We can either pay the wages this week or get that new texture flip. What would you prefer? Well, I need to pay my mortgage, boss. Well, then leave the game alone. It's good enough as it is. Bang average sometimes is okay. The magazines would be empty if it wasn't for the 7s out of 10s. Just see this as that week's filler.
Yeah. Well, this is where the indie game dev scene is so amazing, I think, because some of these guys are doing it for the love of it. And, they'll make one game, but that game is excellent. It's not enough.
Back to my earlier question, when will we see a proper indie developer actually bring out like a 3D game, one that's more akin to the sort of games that we see, of the graphical quality of a PS2 game, but have the depth of a Stardew Valley. Obviously, that man's a blinking machine, Mike. If you ask me, because Sir Mike, sorry, Sir Mike, I don't know how, I don't know how he got all that in that game: the mining, the fishing, the farming, the leveling up, the everything. One guy on his own did all that. So there's hope.
Yeah, I think it's been done before. I look at Minecraft as one of those games where, it was
Totally
a
an
one-man
indie
show.
game. It was, wasn't it?
Yeah, and for the longest time, it was games developers. So I was, I think I bought it on the second or third day that he released his, £20 version.
Yeah.
And it was games developers because it went around on the games developer forums, and it was games developers just playing it.
Wow.
And you just ran around and you hit blocks. There was no survival mode. There was nothing there, and we would just sit there and build during lunchtime mud huts and whatever. And fast forward, and it's one of the biggest gaming IPs around. He sold it for whatever is it, $3 billion or $4 billion.
Yeah.
Did
I tell you we did a show about Minecraft, and one of the most amazing things I pulled out is Microsoft confessed to having a 100-year business plan for Minecraft.
I'm not surprised with that.
I've never known a business make a 100-year decision before. It's phenomenal.
Yeah,
that's Microsoft's Disney. That is Microsoft Dungeons was a nice way of realizing some assets out of that game outside of the main game. It's found its niche. It tends to be. It's a bit of a sleeper hit, that, Mike. I don't know if you know about it, but
yeah, I do.
It's gone down reasonably well. James, the work experience boy here, he can't put it down. He absolutely loves it.
Wow. What kind of feedback do you give him though if he's playing that much on the game?
He's here to play games, isn't he? So that's totally fine.
Okay.
It's a bit naughty,
Yeah. No, he's wasting all his time on it.
Well, he's an expert on it. Should we need an episode on this, we'll wheel him out. I think that probably draws a neat line before Sir Mike's not shy of fighting for the little man. He's going to bring HR in for James the Work Experience Boys, civil rights. I thought I was doing him a favour, but I'm not doing his personal development growth any good. So Mike's highlighted that to me. It's a little bit like Childline. It's not as bad as Childline.
No.
So anyway, the news. Did we miss anything? Do you have an opinion or take on the news? Well, if you do, let me tell you, Collected Masses, how you get in contact with us. You can email us at questions@unofficialcontrollerpodcast.com. You can direct messages on Instagram or Twitter. Look out for the weekly posts and drop a comment on there when and if we need you to. And then, once all that's done, and you've got some time to kill, and you think, oh, if only I knew someone who listened to the show like me and they like these games and they maybe wanted to swap. But don't worry, Sunshine, we've got you back. All right? We've got a Discord for you and everyone that listens to the show to come. If you're on the periphery, dive in. Water's warm. No one bites unless you ask. Okay? Mike's up on a high chair like the lifeguard, blowing. No bombing. Retro Gamer Thomas. None of that action going on here, sir. Join in with us. Come on, oil up and hit the gym with me. And Mike, do you know the price of this Discord? It's the best. It has to be the most acceptable price in the history of the world.
I can't see that going for less than £100.
Let me tell you now, Sir Mike, Sunshine. Let me tell you now. It's hard to go through paying the respects, but also kind of keeping the beat in here. But I'm doing it.
Yeah.
It's a great price. It's £0. 0 pence. That's free to those. Okay, just because it's free doesn't mean it's poo. It means that we're just super generous.
That's an exciting price to be around.
It's the sort of price that sees things fly off the shelf normally.
Yeah. If that price was a drink, what drink would it be?
It would be the ever-giving lifeblood of every single thing on Earth. It's water. I don't want to overhype it, Mike. You need it. I need it. But this version of mine, it's free. But look at the shade of it. It's slightly different to everybody else's. It's the best water experience you could possibly imagine.
Amazing.
Pour it down your throat. Literally feels like you're drinking Mary Magdalene's tears. There's not many of them. Do you know what? They're pretty powerful.
Yeah.
That brings us wondering, when we talk about price points, Mike, I was once told many years ago, don't refer to this as cheap. Refer to it as affordable, because cheap indicates values that aren't good, whereas affordable indicates that you're getting something for a good price. But sometimes, Mike, amazing things, beautiful things that you scratch your head at and say, no, this isn't right. This is a sucker punch and take all my details from me from my bank. First minute's free. The next 10 minutes is going to cost me like an 0898 number I shouldn't have rang when I was 12. But we've brought you on because there is such a thing out there, isn't there? If you're a gamer and you want to be involved in such wonderful things, there's a thing called Anstream. And we've brought in Sir Mike Rouse to tell us everything you need to know about Anstream. Mike, last time we saw you, you came in to basically do a This Is Your Life. I implore everyone to go back and listen to that episode if you haven't. It's a long one, but you like the long form content, so it's one you can nibble at all week and you will not be disappointed. It's the Christmas turkey that just keeps on giving meat, not in a bad way either. You were telling us about your journey through the software industry, and one that I must say is actually very, very significant. And I do believe you are the hidden gem, one of the reasons why you were knighted, of the British games industry. You've had your finger in every pie, a little bit like a leper, but in a lot more significant way.
Excellent.
And last time we spoke to you, you were living out your life in a more normal, traditional way. But since then, obviously keeping going with and we must push it now, the YouTube channel, which is doing gangbuster numbers, if you don't mind me saying. And the content, Mike, always supremely succulent. How would people find your YouTube before we get deep into the Anstream story?
Well, they'd have to go to YouTube.
Yeah.
And click on the little magnifying glass.
Yes.
Some would think that was an inspector icon. It's not. It's for searching.
I see what you've done there. Yes.
Yeah. Click on that and type in Retro Gamer Boy, and then you'll see a pixel version of me pop up. If you're in any doubt, it's a pixel version of a standard white male with a beard and no hair.
Welcome to the club. I think it's the default hairstyle and facial style of anyone that's picking up a controller that's around 30 plus. Mike, you're 21. Yes. I don't know how this affliction is it's obviously stress of being in the industry. Anyway, with all that said and done, you found yourself on a transition to the wonderful Anstream. So before we dive in to that, let's give them an epilogue of how you came here. How did you get to Anstream?
Are we going through the full life story again?
No. No, they've got a 3-hour episode for that. I'm thinking unpause from the end of that episode and then fill in hopefully the small blanks.
So I was at a studio called Hangar 13, which is a first-party studio that's part of 2K. And I had just finished a game called Mafia: The Definitive Edition. Mm-hmm. It was a remaking of a game that came out in 2002. Came out on the PS2, but mainly on PC and Xbox. And coincidentally enough, in the year that game came out, I produced another game for Sony called The Getaway. Both very similar games. And those were the two big gangster games, open world gangster games come out, Getaway and Mafia. And then fast forward 20 years later, and I'm doing the remake of the game that I was in competition with.
You're trying to dethrone, you and now you're propping up the king.
Yes. So I finished that, and then I helped 2K set their studio and their business up. It was a big studio, over 400 people. Wow. And I was coordinating the development across the 3 sites across the globe. So there's Brighton, Brno in the Czech Republic, and the San Francisco office. So I was coordinating and managing all the people and the strategies and the production work and all that kind of jazz.
You're meant to be taking it easy.
Yes. And all the while, there was this gentleman called Steve Cottam who would ping me on the internet, asking me to come down and see his new company that he was setting up.
Wow.
It's retro gaming. He'd seen my YouTube channel, and he was asking me to come over and have a look at what they were doing. And eventually, I gave in to the charms and had a look at what they were doing. And I was excited. And so I packed my bags, said my goodbyes, gave out cakes, and left to go join this new startup company called Anstream Arcade, who are taking the classic games that we love and smashing them together with brand new technologies where the gaming's future is. So what we have now is a retro arcade with over 1,300 games that are delivered to you via the internet, and allows you to essentially play retro games on almost any device.
Well, on that note, I feel that leads us into a couple of the questions we've got for you today. One of the first ones, this is the second question, but fits in quite well. How hard is it to get licenses? And do you have to have permission to do the challenges on the games as you sort of change in the way the game plays? So there's 2 points there. Probably one we need to dive into first of all is the games and the licenses. Is that how do you... Let's put them at ease. First of all, Anstream, you could be streaming this on a mobile, correct?
Correct.
You could stream this on a tablet. You could stream it on a PC. You can pair a Bluetooth controller to any of these devices and have the best fun.
Yes.
Now, the most amazing thing about this whole experience is, as far as my understanding goes, Mike, it's much like our Discord. It's £0, 0 pence.
Correct. It is £0, 0 pence.
Phenomenal. So, with Retro Gamer Thomas's question in mind, you put on your big boy trousers. So Mike Rouse goes down in a Bentley, knocks on the door. Mr. Capcom, how are you? I'm not so bad, yeah. So I've got this wonderful thing for you to have a look at. Oh, I love this. This menu's great. I love what you're doing with that game. You're putting these challenges in it. What's the damage, Mike? How does a developer how does the game's publisher from back in the day, or developer if they're still attached to it, how do they get a slice of Anstream if it's such a generous offering?
So there is, and I can't go into all the payment details because they're protected by these weird contracts. But essentially, one of the main ways that developers get paid is every time someone plays their game, we pay them money. And now the more astute people out there are going to say, but Mike, if you're not making any money, how do you pay them money? Well, one of the things we are going to do is Anstream's going to remain free, but we are going to be bringing on a premium tier. And the premium tier will give you extras. It doesn't take anything away from the free tier, but it gives you extras on the premium tier. So at the moment, the way we fund ourselves is some very nice people saw the vision, they liked it, and they've given us some money.
Wow.
And that allows us to kind of build the service, operate it, and get it up and running. And then in the future, we'll be bringing Anstream to consoles and gaming platforms. And on there'll be the option to play for free, or there'll be the option to go premium. And with premium, there'll be a ton of cool things that you'll be able to engage with.
We're seeing this then. As an outsider looking in, imagine I don't know anything about it. Could it be summed up really as the Netflix of games?
It could be called the Netflix of games, but I think it's the Spotify of games.
I like that slight change.
Yes.
Subtle
change.
But good enough to sort of justify what's happening here, Mike. I like what you've done there.
Yeah, and the reason why I say Spotify is because we're going to introduce something like not ads. We will have ads at some point. Everyone has to have ads, but we'll introduce something called gems, where essentially you use your gems to play the games if you're on free. And now we give you free gems all the time. You can earn gems by winning competitions. But you will also be able to earn gems from watching ads like you do with Spotify, in terms of you watch something and then you get to play something. So that's coming. We are going to introduce that. It still remains free. So if you never want to play anything and you just want to play a game, you can do that. You won't have ads during your game, ever. You're only kind of watching ads to get these gems, and then the gems unlock your play.
Mm-hmm.
So if you want to play Monkey Island 2, you want it streamed perfectly, you want to be able to save your game, you get 4 save slots so you can save wherever you are, and you want to spend 6 hours playing Monkey Island, you can do that and never see an ad.
That's phenomenal, Mike.
Yeah, that's completely free. So
you're at work on your dinner hour, think, do you know what, I'm going to slide on www.anstream.com, right? That's the web address. Straight there, you're on it. You think, while I'm having my pate sandwich, I'm going to play some Monkey Island. Save it, come back to it tomorrow dinner. And the dinner after that, and the dinner after that, and the dinner after that. And I don't need a fancy kick-ass PC. And it doesn't matter that this 286 thing can barely turn on. In fact, there probably are going to be some operational requirements. 286, not guaranteed to be supported here, but you get the drift of where I'm going with this. What a wonderful, nice way to play. Are there any other are those sort of point and click adventures on there, Mike? Or is it, give me a range and breadth of what we've got? Obviously I know, but I can't convey silence of knowledge through the microphone. So through the medium of you, give me a broad selection of what we can get our mitts into.
So something that I'm really excited about, because I never got to play it and my wife did, was the Indiana Jones Atlantis game.
Yes.
So that came onto the platform about a month ago. We are just finishing up on DOS, so we'll be bringing DOS onto the platform.
Oh, that's so good.
Yeah, and there are some very, very famous, loved point and click adventures that are going to be on the platform.
Are you aware of something called, I used to love going to this website, it was called Abandonia, games that had actually become what's known in the industry as abandonware because their licenses run out. So technically nobody owned these games.
Yeah.
And on Abandonware, they had a list of games you could download. Fantastic games, more bigger boy home computer games than console games, but still a wonderful selection. I wonder if you could bring them in as part of that DOS thing, because nobody owns them. And there was some massive games that were big in the time that obviously developers have gone, we can't monetize that. We're not that bothered. We just let it lapse. The games that you or I would have ripped magazines apart just for a 1/4 inch run of, coming next week sort of story. There's some absolute belters in there. Real-time strategy, management simulation games, the sort of place you would go to find something like the Space Shuttle Simulator that Virgin brought out for the Amiga in the sort of early 90s. Wonderful collection. Whether someone wants to go down and play that on Anstream, I don't know, but as an historical curio, yeah, maybe.
Possibly. I mean, going back to Field Marshal Thomas's question about licensing, that kind of stuff, I think, we've done a lot of work to make sure that we license this. And the reason for this is we talk about like Capcom, and we know that Capcom have got this license, or Konami have got this license.
Yeah.
But there are a lot of games that got sold off and people lost them. And what we did is we spent years tracking down the owners of these games. And sometimes you wouldn't think this, but sometimes the game gets split up. So the logo will be owned by one person.
Yeah.
The game will be owned by the other, and the audio track will be owned by someone else. And so what we have to do is get all 3 people to agree to license the game to us. So, there's a lot of work we do at Anstream to make sure that what you're playing is legal and genuine. And some of these people, they're fans who have bought the games, and they're investing in keeping the game alive. And so we want to make sure that they're, we're doing this correctly so that they're getting paid for the investment they're doing to keep the game alive.
Wow.
But there's also, you talk about abandoned games. We have got some games that were never released coming to the platform. I can't say what they are, but there are loads of games that were never released. So, we're doing this kind of game preservation thing almost.
Applaudable. It really is.
Yeah. And there's so many cool things. We talk about challenges that you mentioned earlier. So just in case people don't know what Anstream is, we have this thing called challenges where we actually take a piece of the game, 30 seconds of the game, and we make a challenge out of it. So it could be Pac-Man, and we take out all the little pills except for 4 in the corner, and we've got or 4 of the dots, and we say, right, you've got to survive as long as you can, but without eating anything. And then everyone, and then that's a challenge. You can challenge your friends, and we can turn those into tournaments. And suddenly you've got a world tournament of this challenge where everyone's trying to run around the Pac-Man board without eating a pill. So we got things like that, those cool challenges. But another cool thing I didn't realize is that as our developers are going in and messing around and building these challenges, they find loads of hidden stuff that people have no idea existed about the games. Hidden levels, hidden characters, game mechanics that were never released, and so this whole thing is starting to,
Can I request something? And I wanted this of Xbox Games Pass, and I don't think it's hard to convey to people. But when I look at things like Anstream and Games Pass, and probably to a lesser extent PlayStation now, I love everything that I'm seeing. But what I wish it was more curated.
Yeah,
way more curated, because what Anstream has got is it's got stacks of games, and a lot of younger gamers won't know anything about them. So it'd be nice if, I'm throwing you under the bus here, but it'd be nice if you could pick out a random Mega Drive game, do a history of piece on it with your wonderful video skills that you have, and have that sort of streaming. And then over time, you'll be able to build up almost a documentary library of these games as well. I don't think sometimes the games I grew up with, like Midwinter on the Atari ST or the Amiga, like nobody's covering those games on YouTube, but they are phenomenal games to play if you can just get your head in the mind space of someone who would struggle through this myriad. The story's in there, the scope's in there, probably running on Anstream. It will be the best way of playing it that you've ever had, because the machine that's beasting it, Anstream's headquarters, no doubt, is certainly more powerful than the Atari ST. So, but to have then someone to be able to give you the blurb about it, the key names that are involved, and where did the idea come from, and what's the story, and you presenting that in your wonderful way, all wrapped up with an Anstream in and out at the front and back end. And to be honest with you, that's an awful lot of content. But I think the product's worth it. I think Anstream's worth it as that video game preservation site that you talk of. Like, as you and I both know, collecting the physical media of gaming is very difficult and price prohibitive. Mm-hmm. And there are some wonderful gems of games that have or historical curios, to reuse that phrase, that are worth people's attention, that are like landmarks on the journey. Do you think Anstream could ever evolve to be that?
So we have some future features that are going to do very much that. In the platform as it evolves. So at the moment, if you go into the game, there's a trivia section for each game, or for most games, where you can read up on the trivia. So we're looking at almost like exposing that a little bit more and allowing you to have a museum tour of gaming.
Yes.
And there's so many cool things. There's a game that we just released called is it Noah's Ark 3D? And you have to go around, you have to feed the animals. It's a SNES game. And you play it and you're like, oh, this is what is this game? Then you read the trivia on it, and you find out that the guy who bought it, I think he was a vicar, or he was some high-ranking religious individual, bought this game and bought the rights to Hellraiser, and started making a Hellraiser game using the Wolfenstein engine. Until people, I guess, in his Congress or whatever, they basically said, hang on a minute, we can't release as a religious institute a Hellraiser game.
No.
We need to reskin this. And so the game was reskinned to Noah's Ark. But Noah's Ark 3D, I think it's called, was actually Hellraiser originally. So, the desperate to find the assets. I don't think the assets exist anymore, but, we were desperate to also see if we could find the assets and rebuild this Noah's Ark game with its actual Hellraiser graphics in. I can imagine it being something like Silent Hill, where the world is nice and Noah's Arky, and then suddenly you hear the siren going off, and then Hellraiser, all the assets turn to Hellraiser. But there's there's things like that, and again, I think this is one of the powerful things about Anstream. Me as a physical collector, when I first heard about it, I was like, I'm a physical person. I like my physical gaming, and what I realized that actually, my physical game collecting is, I guess, like my brother who collects vinyl. But it doesn't stop him from listening to Spotify. Right? He's still.
That's a really, really solid point.
So yeah, and that's what Anstream, I think, is. It doesn't stop me from collecting or playing physical games, but I now have a library of another 1,000 that if I wanted to buy the physical one, I could do. Equally, there's games in there I would never have learnt about or known about until I got to play it on Anstream.
Yeah. Well, on that note, I didn't know about it until I noticed that that's how you were streaming the games that I was watching that you play, as I started to pick into your live stream that you were doing at the time with the Mighty Sega Head. It was then I started, it wasn't apparent at first. When you're first into one of these streams, you're trying to work out which way's up and focusing on what you're doing and more really watching the game than the menus around it. But quite often you would say, "Oh, we're going to go on Anstream for the last 10 minutes, or we're going to go on Anstream this week," and and I'm like, "What is this Anstream?" And then you would often say to the viewers, "Oh, what game do you want?" And you would scroll by, and I would see like Super Star Wars. I'm like, how have they got that? And then you scroll by and see, well, how has he got that? Like, how is Anstream able to curate such a fantastic library? I can't imagine anyone with any knowledge of the industry going on there and not finding something that they've A, enjoyed in the past, or B, would like to enjoy in the future. Are you involved in we need this game? What's that team of people like Anstream? I guess they're feverish destroyers of mega machines in the 90s and collecting all the PlayStation 1 magazines and weird stuff like that. I mean, where are their heads at?
So the guy that heads that all up is a bit of a legend in the games industry. He's I'll have to let him tell the story, but he's someone that helped build Swiv. He was one of the original creators of Swiv.
Wow.
Then had a falling out with the office manager, so she took his name off the credits.
Savage.
He's the guy who literally created the game with someone else, and so he got that taken off. But his name's hopefully he doesn't mind me name dropping him now, but his name's Darren Melbourne, a veteran of the industry, and he's got a real passion for gaming, like everyone at Anstream. A lot of us at Anstream are retro gamers, and he's got this knowledge that and appreciation for games that you only get as if you grew up and you went down the shop and you bought them, or you're copying your mates' tapes. So he's got this appreciation that others don't have, and he goes out there and finds these games. There's a game that we found out that we've got today that I am so excited about.
Can you give us the inside track on that?
No, unfortunately not.
An absolute scout. I want one scoop, Mike. One scoop.
I can't give you any scoops. I'll be fired.
Okay, that's fine. One thing I don't want to see is a Knight of the Realm living out of a cardboard box.
Okay, thank you.
Thank me. You'd have me drawn and quartered for such insolence.
I feel like I'm at the mercy when I'm in your abode. That you're the king here.
That might well be.
I may be your knight, but I'm just serving at your pleasure.
I've never really thought of us in that way before, Mike. It's kind of an eye-opening experience, a little bit like this Anstream thing. Talking about opening people's eyes, I said before we got to the subject of choice, we were talking around you streaming it. Is there a big stream community that's developing around the fact that someone needs very little equipment to immediately look like a pro because they've got a selection of games that really should be able to capture anybody? Is there a safe haven for them to work with you guys?
Yeah, absolutely. There's quite a few streamers that are kind of part of the Anstream streaming community. We've got there's one chap who only ever streamed from original hardware, but he now does, I think, a night a week where he streams with Anstream because of the convenience of being able to switch from Commodore to Amiga to Atari to SNES to Mega Drive. There's
Imagine doing that live. There's just way too many. You'd end up hung. You'd end up wrapped up in wires.
Yes.
You'd be a complete state. It'd be a snake's wedding underneath the TV. You think you're plugging in the VIC-20, you've just plugged in PS3. Goodness knows what's going on.
I just realized I did give you a bit of information that I shouldn't have. I told you that DOS was coming out. So there's your exclusive there.
Do you know what? We'll leave that in as a nugget. I'm not going to advertise it, but that's beautiful. You're a very generous man. Every time you come, you leave us a little something. So there's a safe haven for these people to. Do you encourage them to stream certain kind of games, or do you just let them choose whatever they want to choose?
Let them choose whatever they want to choose. I think there's one of the beauties of this catalog is just being able to access so many games, and it's interesting to see. There's games that we've licensed that maybe one person has played, and then they'll pick it up and start playing it, and then we'll see a massive uptake where everyone's now found this game and they're playing it. One of the things I am going to do with Anstream is I want to improve discoverability. So I'm building out a load of features that help you find games that you're interested in, or types of games that you're interested in, or genres that you're interested in, and kind of just bring them to your attention a little more. And also kind of show off what your friends are playing and what other people are playing, just to give you a good sense of what's on the platform. Because every single week without fail, new games. And it's not going to be long before you're looking at 5,000 games. And at that point, I think it's...
that's when the curation is key, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Like signpost. This is amongst the 5,000 titles. This is an amazing experience for this reason. The trivia is good. Sometimes I just think we're audio-visual beings, aren't we? Especially as the world moves on, the reading of text. Things can be so much more dynamic if you've got someone passionate delivering it. And, you get my vote. If you're listening, Anstream, he's a great guy. Let's cut back to that. We've got a couple more questions. Could you have your own private tournaments on Anstream, e.g. an annual unofficial controller podcast sensible soccer tournament? That would be really cool. Or even an ongoing season with league table. Probably hard to do with weekly fixtures, etc., but would be good fun. Plus, great to have you back, Mike.
Oh,
so can we set up our own individual private tournaments?
Currently, no. But I think this has already been leaked by my boss. In the near future, yes.
Wow.
You will be able to do that.
So let's just think of a game, Speedball. There's potential for a Speedball league.
Potential, yes.
Yes. See what I used there? I don't want to implicate anybody. There's potential for all these sort of retro sports leagues.
Yep.
That's fantastic. Are there any games that have been they're a no-go? Let's say, for an example, all Nintendo first-party Super Nintendo games, they're off the table and always will be.
Yeah.
But some of the second-party and third-party titles, though, fair game.
Absolutely. I think you've hit the nail on the head there with that question. I think there's, Nintendo are gatekeepers. They restrict their content, and I'm not a big fan of that because that artificially pushes the price up or makes something artificially scarce when it doesn't need to be. But Nintendo, yes, I think it's safe to say that no one gets Nintendo stuff except for Nintendo. But as you can see on the platform, we've got plenty of SNES games on there.
That's the thing. There's lots of stuff on on these platforms without necessarily needing access to the AAA exclusives that are on there. Yeah.
And some great games as well.
Another question, if I may be so bold. This is from my own locker, if you don't mind. Obviously, everybody knows that's listened to one of our previous shows that you were one of the if not the key pillar in the creation of PlayStation Home. Do you think we might see, please, especially with Facebook entering this metaverse that they're going into and people wanting to create shared online spaces, do you think, and there's people absolutely slathering for the return of that service, you know the one I'm talking about, but do you think Anstream could become, is that the direction it's going when you referred to earlier as the curated museum, almost like arcade cabinet historical curio? Are we to imagine a shared online space in the style of PlayStation Home? I've said it. Where Anstream will allow us to peruse arcades in a 3D Vista way and therefore go do so with virtual avatars and our friends' virtual avatars in that shared space.
What can I say? Well, me and Steve, who's the CEO, we have mused about an oasis of retro video games.
Oh. Yeah. Using the set from Bad Influence, which I've been currently watching back to back on YouTube. Something like that, please.
Yeah.
With a TV wall and then all the consoles set out in the, you've only got to check, or even a Games Master, although, you know, that's all taken at the minute, isn't it? But yeah, something like that space. You could have the arcade machines, you could have the console. What did you call it? An oasis of retro.
Yeah.
That's flipping beautiful. Another question. Interesting that you guys are bringing back Sir Mike. Not that I object to the matter. I guess since there's not much time for me to meander today, and by the focus on Anstream, this is a great question because the answer we've already gone over, but let's reiterate it to the listeners. What are the minimum specs for running the service on, say, a laptop? I have one for myself, but it's strictly for college purposes, and I don't want to download something like Steam in case it ends up breaking it.
Interesting. The minimum spec, it's pretty low. I don't have it to hand. But what I would say is that not long from now, all you'll need is a browser. And you'll be able to play it.
Does that cause frustrations? Because PlayStation 5 omitted its web browser. That locks you off from, because potentially, I don't know enough about how consoles work, but Microsoft's got a browser. Surely you can access Anstream and be playing the games on there right now, or is that not possible?
Not currently, but in the very, very, probably before the end of this year, that will be very possible to do.
Ooh. Yeah, that's just business is about to pick up.
Yeah, and we are looking in the future to have Anstream on every single gaming service. Our goal is to have Anstream everywhere. So no matter what you've got,
how much is Anstream Premium? May I ask?
So we're still working out the costs on those because we haven't pushed that out yet.
Okay.
The service is current. You can go onto a price. There is a pricing model on there, but it's so out of date.
I was just wondering, say, if you got Xbox on the phone and you said, "Hey, my friends at Xbox, I used to work there. Do you remember me? Do you remember my game?" I'm right, you do. Okay, but you would imagine that being able to offer something like Anstream as part of a roll-in Games Pass price could potentially be a win-win for you, because that would mitigate or hide the subscription model price, but also allow Microsoft to say, you know what, you thought we had 500 games. The reality is we've got 5,500. And when we said before about it was important to us to catalogue these games as history, preservation of the media, we're all in on Anstream.
That's a great question. I think we need to give you a Duke title and bring you into Anstream as our main businessman, because that's an awesome idea.
Well, I don't know. There's probably some cross-pollination of ponds. I'm sure they've got games on Games Pass that you've got in there, but I should imagine that the cross-section of those is one or two titles. So I'm sure, I don't know what the pricing model is for Anstream, but I imagine it's something that could be sucked up as a value add for them, and not be that bad. And to be honest, then you really are getting everything. The best of both worlds. You're preserving that media and games that you could then argue Microsoft or whoever is doing a service to the industry. Because, I mean, that's the other thing to look at Antstream as. You're collecting up these titles, the history of the Hellraiser game that ended up being Noah Feeds a Horse or whatever it was, Noah in 3D Land. Who would know about that before? And it's a service not only to provide the game to play, but to provide the story behind the game and say, this is the catalogued history of this.
Yeah.
And that's the sort of thing that probably exists in the back of a Super Play magazine from 1994, but then is completely lost to the annals of history. And that's one of the reasons, going back to it, why I would watch something like Bad Influence, because there's so many peripherals and games and opinions and bits of news and vaporware that was said to be coming out then that never did, that gives you an insight into the time like no other. Fascinating stuff. So
and one of the things that our CEO Steve's really passionate about is and he reminds us around is that he wants Antstream to have every game. That's the goal. Maybe we're not got the latest games that are coming out, but you're playing on your PlayStation 6 and then you go to Antstream to play your PlayStation 4 games all the way back to the earliest of games on the Magnavox Odyssey.
Wow.
So again, I think that's, there's a lot we're doing with Antstream. We're making it fun. We're making it challenging. We're making it competitive, but, we are preserving stuff that's lost. And the fact that we're going to be bringing in games that were never released, that's.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah.
On that note, obviously there's new games releasing all the time, indie games and games for 16-bit consoles releasing today, brand new on machines that probably should have been 6 feet under 20 years ago. Do you intend to bring those to the platform?
We have some already. And we're, whenever I do my videos on new Mega Drive games, I always then send a second email saying, hey, do you want to talk to us about Anstream?
Wow.
So, there's games that I've shown on my channel that, I've just found them. I share that with everyone. And then
what's that really sort of left field game that's done a bit of a merry dance on Kickstarter and he's playing a little bit of comes in a cardboard box or a pair of pants? What game was that? Begins with a P.
Paprium.
Is that coming to Antstream? Because I'm never buying that. Let me tell you and the guy who creates it now. I don't want to damage your chances of getting it. And I know these things are probably hanging on a wire as it is, even though you give the guy some money. Okay.
Maybe eventually. Again, our goal is to have every game on the platform. Whether that's realistic or not, but I would never say never. I know he's doing a Kickstarter for it to come to modern console.
Maybe give the guys who paid for the Mega Drive game their game, and then maybe think about doing a bit of something else.
Still waiting for mine.
What version did you go for? The panties in a box version, or just a straight clamshell?
I think I have a panties in the box version coming.
Of course you do.
I also went on to the Kickstarter and then back the Kickstarter because I could buy the other game that he released years ago that you can't buy. So look, we've had this discussion over Telegram before, right? I set myself a target to collect something and then end up being pulled in some obscure direction and collecting Russian bootleg games.
Well, you needed those.
I did.
If you haven't got Assassin's Creed on Mega Drive, you're not breathing out. You're not breathing air. You're not real human, as far as I'm concerned. Okay, so there's hope that I might get to play that ramble of a game. I'm sorry. Actually, have you played it yet?
I have not. I know lots of people who say it is fantastic.
I knew a story about a guy who went through, had a walk through town naked because everyone told him that he looked great. I sometimes wonder if that happens with these Kickstarter games. You're so invested in it, it's like, yeah, it's amazing, yeah, and then secretly you're like, oh no.
Yes, buyer's remorse.
Yeah, big time would kick in, I feel.
Yeah,
but the word on the street is that's a good game.
Yeah, some very close friend of mine who are not pleased with how that game came about. Have said that they can't deny though that it is an extremely well made game.
Well, that's good to hear, because obviously when I've seen the footage of it on your channel and I've gone off and researched it independently, there's absolutely no doubt that the physical images I'm seeing on the screen are phenomenal for a 16-bit machine, and especially the Mega Drive. The color palette alone makes you can't quite get my head around it, but I'm sure there's enough variations of colors on the screen for it to work out. But to be honest, it looks wonderful. But sometimes when you see these modern, like, let's throw everything at the screen, don't worry about anything else, it'll be too late by the time they're playing it. You're actually saying to me, not only does it look great, it plays well too.
Yeah.
Even worse that you ain't got a copy, Mike.
No.
It's like the holy grail of a Mega Drive game. What, it looks amazing? Yeah. How does it play? Phenomenal. Have you got it? No.
I've paid the money. He has my cash. Like a loan shark.
Does he acknowledge he's had your money?
Well, through an electronic receipt. He has, but I'm less worried. I don't really get drawn too much into the politics of these things. I think as a games developer, I'm a little numb to it because I see how long games take to make. And so, as a consumer, you may back a game and you want it like next week or the week after or 2 weeks later, right? But the reality is that some games take 7-8 years to make. My big problem with that company is their communication was terrible. They didn't tell anyone anything. But if you were honest, you may still be frustrated. But if you were honest with people and say, "Look, it's going to take me 5 years to make this," at least you know where you stand. And I think
that's understandable. It's probably not as backable from a Kickstarter point of view. It's like put money in this hole, say goodbye to it for 5 years. Like, oh crikey, that feels a bit much. Whereas Kickstarters probably keep that off the table a little bit because they need that money up front, and then they can work out how long it's going to make, depending on how much they get. But that's not right. We get sidetracked slightly because we're talking about money, Mike. And to be honest, to get involved in Anstream, you don't need any. Is there anything that you want to voice about Anstream? Because I feel like we've done a good job of covering it off. Is there anything else that you want to highlight? Is there anyone there that deserves an award for dedication? We've mentioned a few people. Obviously yourself, again, if they're listening at Anstream,
I would definitely encourage people to try it out. Look at it, what it is now, and in 6 months' time, it's going to be 200 times better. I'm bringing, whilst I run the studio, I also do a lot of the design and come up with a lot of the ideas. I even do some of the graphic design for it, and I've built some features with the guys there that we're bringing out, which is going to just completely next level this for retro gamers. So have your physical consoles, have all that kind of stuff there, but then also have Anstream that you can dip into and just have a never-ending catalog of games that grows every single day.
Do you know what? It actually, a lot of us might get probably a little bit sidetracked, the humdrum of the industry that we find ourselves in, whatever position of that moment that we find ourselves in, and get terribly bored by our day-to-day. Sometimes a project will come along and you're like, yeah, I'm half excited about this, but to hear the excitement and passion in your voice about Anstream, just then, especially, your excitement at this new design and the implementation of this stuff, and the actual sort of the bravery and conviction in your voice of like, they're going to love this. To me, you saying it validates it, because I've seen the passion. I've seen these, video chats and show shots of your thing, and we've had you on for 3 hours, and to be honest, that show could have gone for 8 hours.
It
Mike,
could have, yes.
and I would have enjoyed every single second of it. You're wonderful. I'm not just saying this. You're a genuinely nice chap, unless you turn the camera off and stab hamsters or something. But I don't think that's in your MO. To be honest with you, and you've corpsed, I've corpsed. I don't know. To be honest with you, you're not a hamster killer.
No.
But the industry's lucky to have you, and the passion that you bring. I wish I could bring that passion to my chosen industry, and it's wonderful to see and to know that you guys are all addressing it with that mindset. Means that the end product that comes out is something of that much desire and want to create something of a certain level will manifest itself in the product. So I think that I can't really say enough about it. The best thing, really, and I really wish people would just pour onto the internet right now, is it's going to cost you nothing. And even if you've got an iPhone 4, you can get some mileage out of this. Work with us here. What more do you need? You're scratching around in the penny jars. And if you can get Battlefield 2042, we'll take some pressure off, okay? Get it next week, pre-owned at half price. Use that shrapnel for that then. Because right now, 5,000 plus games waiting for you. Every week, there's more. It's the backlog that you never thought you could ever wish for. It's the demon backlog from hell. It's massive, but it also costs you nothing. I mean, what's wrong with these guys? I question if they're even gamers if they don't even at least Google it.
Yes.
What's wrong with them? So, with that all said and done, must implore everybody, and again, there'll be a moment for self-pops again at the end. But just to, once again, in case there's any doubt, if you could point them in the direction of exactly where they need to go to enjoy everything that Anstream's got to offer, and then exactly where to go so they can see and share and smell and touch everything that you, aka Retro Gamer Boy, Sir Mike Rouse, has to offer.
Just go to www.antstream.com and you can get it there. All those games for free. And then you can find me on the YouTube and on the Twitter and on the Instagram. I touch Facebook now and then, but it's a bit of a seedy place for me. So I kind of fleetingly jump in there and drop some creative juice and then run.
Very voyeuristic way of leading your life.
Yes.
Kind of what Facebook's for.
Yeah.
Kind of a hookup, leave some juice, go.
Go, yeah.
Right, okay. So
swipe left.
Don't do that. No, don't do. We're on the edge. There's no Sega head here. We're on the edge of not being a PG show. I really, So that's for Antstream, and everybody's got to check it out. Even just out of morbid curiosity. You've heard us waffle on about it for probably too long now. So go check it out, and then we'll shut up. Secondly, obviously, your good self, your own fine catalogue of work. We mentioned YouTube before. All they've got to do is search on there for Retro Gamer Boy.
Yep. And then hopefully be not too disappointed with what you find.
Listen, if you listen to this show, you will accept this is the high watermark of sub-average. Therefore, when you stumble onto a AAA product like Retro Gamer Boy on YouTube, you will assess and know quality immediately. That's why we exist, Mike, so people can actually find their palette of taste. We have to be here so you can be there. They need to know what value baked beans taste like, so they know foie gras when they kick it in the taste buds. Okay, that's what I'm talking about. Someone who knows about foie gras, in fact, no, it's gone off pate. He's repackaged as foie gras in the run-up to Christmas. Stingray takes absolutely no prisoners. Food poisoning, it was fine when I fed it to the dog. You obviously have a weak constitution. That's what he's been up to this week. Have you seen him this week at all? Or do you avoid him generally?
I have. And, it's the buzz. The first time he appeared to me was different to what you saw him as. He appears very, very different to me this time, though.
Okay. Well, just bear with me because I'm having some technical issues, would you believe?
Oh, really?
Yes. It's fine, though, because I feel like unless you're flying by the seat of your pants, you're not actually flying.
Oh.
Anyway, it's time for a peek of what we affectionately call Stingray's boot. It's tearing down the drive as we speak. What's nestled between some counterfeit nappies and a dodgy copy of Battlefriendle this week. These are the new release highlights for the week November 1st and November 7th, 2021. I love it when a week runs like that. First is a Monday, 7th is a Sunday. I like it. Balance. Listeners, these are out on digital, physical, will be by the time this podcast in your feed, but could be. I'm not even kidding you now, Mike. They could be region dependent. Spring stop, smoke's cleared, wattle woll. While you've been off, we've had a smattering of other guests. One man saw him as a TV that had a ghostly image on it, the kind of TV that got wheeled into your classroom.
Yeah.
As a kid, I think when you last saw him, you saw him as half some bizarre. It has to be. It stuck in my mind that because in a way it was super dark. Because you saw him as the upper half of your granddad and the lower half of a fish.
Something like that, yeah.
What concerns me most about that is you're okay in your mind with your, presumably, late grandfather's body being possessed by a man and somehow surgically stitched to a fish.
I don't know if I'm okay with it. That's just how it transpired. He's a force to be reckoned with.
What do you see him as today?
So, today it's a little bit odd. He is the penny sweet saleswoman who begrudgingly takes out the half penny milk bottles to stick them in the paper bags. And he's wearing the penny with the stockings that go up to the knee that are cutting into the fat flesh around her thighs. So very odd. I don't know if that says more about me or
I'm not sure because I wasn't really paying that much interest until you mentioned it cutting into the thighs and my ears pricked up. I was on board the train, don't get me wrong, but all of a sudden I found myself in first class accommodation and I thought, this this is a slice of stingray I can appreciate. I just see him as a guy in some denim. Paul Calf, basically. There you go. So, as you know, you've been here before. Tradition dictates that we take a turnabout. We normally pick out something we call a mummy. I think that the law and the script has moved on to the point where we don't even call it a mummy anymore. But you being here, we're going to go the proper way. You know? Pomp and circumstance. And then obviously we're going to pick out a 90s cheesy movie. Keep it nice and simple. I shall go first.
Okay.
Just, if and when we get to your mummy shout, and I don't think this is my mummy, but it's also on PSN. It's one of your free games of the month. It's First Class Trouble, available on the PS5 and PS4 November the 2nd. First Class Trouble is a party game where players must work together against each other to survive a disaster. The goal is to shut down a deadly AI. Some players are imposters, secretly playing as human-looking killer robots, intent on betraying the other players. Basically Among Us with high-res graphics.
Nice. We got Giants Uprising, PC, November the 2nd. Giants Uprising is a medieval fantasy action-adventure game full of giants and unlimited destruction. Take on the role of a powerful giant who finally breaks free from enslavement to seek revenge on the ruthless human race.
I love these write-ups, but I do wonder who at the developer is writing this. Because sometimes it's way out there. Some of the ones I've read out, my God, let me have a look at the game. What? Did they know this when they wrote this?
Yeah.
World War Z out on the Switch, November 2nd, the original hit World War Z that has now captivated over 15 million players now on Switch. Fight off hordes of ravenous zombies in intense story episodes across new zombie-ravaged locations around the world.
Wow. So Bloodshaw, available on everything that has a screen. Bloodshaw is an interactive action movie about a televised battle royale between high-profile streamers, entertainers, death row inmates. You control the fate of Nick, a washed-up actor who fights for a life-changing cash prize.
Sounds like me when I'm not on air, Mike.
Yeah. That sounds like something I watched on Netflix.
Well, I'll be honest. It is a interactive movie, the likes of which we had the chances to play on things like the Mega Drive. It's a bit more advanced than that, don't get me wrong. But it looks quite cool. I don't think it's my cup of tea. I don't like those harsh branching narratives. And, well, on Mega CD, they were particularly savage, weren't they? My least favourite, stroke one I have a bizarre love for, Tomcat Alley.
Oh, yes. Mine was Ground Zero, Texas.
Oh, yeah. Good. Night Trap, actually half reasonable idea there of a game. I think it's one of those games that cults kind of ran away a little bit, and people think it's probably 10 times more than it is. Yep. Same with all those. Road Warrior as well. It's like, in the arcade, maybe. On the Mega Drive, hell, crikey. It would certainly get you preparation for your QTE event on Shenmue, that's for sure. Because if you skip, it was so savage, it would just shut you out the game, and that was it.
Yes.
Unbelievable. The times I've seen the intro to Tomcat Alley, honestly.
Yeah.
Kind of just puts you off. I was thinking, if I was playing this back in the day, I'd be kind of like, as a kid as well, you'd be like, oh yeah, it's great. But inside you'd be dying. You'd be absolutely dying. Your friend would be playing Donkey Kong Country and living it up, and you're like, oh no, look at this, look at the graphics, look at this FMV, look at this. And there'd be half of an eye to someone with the SNES looking over at the Mega CD going, oh yeah,
yeah.
Just looked like something my machine couldn't do. But the guy inside, he's living the biggest lie. He's living the biggest lie. As soon as matey leaves, he's back to Sonic 1. He's like, oh, God, thank God he's gone. I hate Tomcat Alley. It's terrible.
Yeah.
I don't know how I got on that side ramble. It was off the back of Bloodshaw. Time Loader on the PC, November 3rd. Time Loader is a story-driven puzzle platformer with tiny robots, alternate realities, nostalgic music, and primitive tech from the 90s.
Demon Turf. Again, available on pretty much everything. PlayStation, Xbox, Switch, PC. November 4th. This is a 3D platformer with attitude. Join Beebs in her ambitious goal of taking over the Demon Turfs and becoming the Demon Queen herself. Jump, spin, punch your way across the turfs with unique mechanics like momentum-driven combat and self-placed checkpoints. Time to face the Demon King.
Wonderful.
What is momentum-driven combat?
Let me tell you one thing. If only 2 games were in the boot this week, Demon Turf and Pinchcliffe Grand Prix, there'd be no doubt in anybody's mind that Demon Turf is an amazing game. And whatever momentum-driven combat is, it's certainly better than finding out what the world of Flakpia is. Which is what we've got to find out next. Because Pinchcliffe Grand Prix coming to the PC and Switch November 4th is possibly one of the most bizarre games I've ever seen. First of all, I thought, this will be cute. This will be like a 16-bit either game or management game about Grand Prix, and it's like a Japanese, almost like the game dev story. I don't know if you've ever played that. You're in the industry, so you might have. I thought, this could be really nice. Upon researching the game to obtain the blurb, it transpires it's this hellish-looking Finnish TV show that's a bizarre mixture of puppets and very strange, very weird-looking creations. That's the world of Flekpia. And it's a game for the whole family. Play with mini-games, enjoy the classic story, and take it to the tracks for the high-octane racing, which looks a little bit like BC Racers. Alone or with a friend, split screen, but watch out, your competitors will use dirty tricks to win, and so can you. BC Racers on the Mega CD, so like a high-end version of BC Racers. But
I liked BC Racers on the Mega CD, but I think it's the same thing where I liked it because it looked great, but deep down I was dying.
There aren't many experiences on the Mega CD where I haven't felt like dying. Snatcher is one that is a high point, but it's a very different way of playing a game, and I can't imagine many Mega CD owners were looking for that at the time. Sadly, I think the Mega CD owners were looking for the game they saw in the advert that looked like the FMV game that was almost sold with the suggestion that it was like free roam. This is how the game looks. You do what you want in this world, and it's real life graphics. And then the biting reality of when you get home that it's basically some very low FPS movie,
Yeah.
broken down to the point where it looks like teletext, and you can't really do anything. Bar press the button when it requires you to press it on the screen. It's not. Oh God! Imagine if the world had actually gone down that route consistently and persistently. Video games surely would have died.
Yeah. Well, talking about dying, Prison Simulator on the PC. Ironic that it's on the PC because I hear that prison inmates are complaining that they're being given Mega Drives to play on. But if they do get hold of a PC, they can live out their life virtually by getting a taste of prison life. Become a prison guard and deal with dangerous convicts. Prison management, lots of daily activities. You will become the best guard in history. What a title. Or maybe you'll turn into the worst scumbag this prison has ever seen.
From one extreme to the other there. Where are they giving Mega Drives to prisoners?
It was a news story. I can't remember where I saw it. Maybe I saw it on one of my Mega Drive news groups. But yes, apparently they're complaining because they're giving them gaming systems to play with, but they're giving them Mega Drives. And, they're complaining they're getting that. And there's some of us who would be like, what? You get in a Mega Drive?
Time to commit some crimes, mate.
Yes, time to get in there. I could bolster the collection. They've probably got some rare ones.
Oh, you would be like a kingpin in there, wouldn't you? Everyone's got Mega Drives and you arrive as like this, stand back. It's like, my God, look what he's got. Look what he's got. Is that you want a bit of 32X action, do you? Oh, you want a little bit of that, do you? Want a little bit of... My God, I mean, we were talking about the Mega CDs car crash of a library. Little do we know, we didn't get into the 32X here. Are you going to go for a full PAL 32X? You are. You wouldn't though, would you?
I probably would. Do you know what? I had a large selection when the 32X came out. I had a large amount of them, and I think I flogged them to get a PlayStation.
What was your favourite 32X game at that time? Only of the opinion of the time, based on the games that you had.
Okay, so there wasn't one. But I loved Star Wars Arcade.
Yeah.
I loved Virtua Racing.
Yeah.
And for some reason, I loved Metalhead. But I don't know why I liked it because it was terrible.
It was I think at the time, we didn't see many well-presented games. And I feel like it had a good level of presentation versus a 16-bit side-scrolling platformer. So it does... Some of those CD games have a level of a class that is just evident by the fact that the CD gives them the ability to do it. I don't necessarily, as you probably found out, necessarily means it translates to a great game, but you feel like a slick badger in those menus.
Yes, you do.
Space Lines from the Far Out PC and Xbox November 4th. Wanting to pilot a spaceship? Run your own space line? Then look no further. Deal with nosy passengers, overzealous health inspectors, random asteroids, and more.
We got Star Sand on the PC, November the 4th. Star Sand is a mystic survival game set amongst the dune of an arcane desert. Well timed for another movie release, I think, there. An open world full of danger, vast environments, and mysterious happenings await you. Explore, hunt, craft, build, and survive.
I can see something like a sand snake or a silica worm in that game.
Yes.
Super Sammy Roll on the PC. It's not on the PC. I don't know why I'd say that because it's on the PS5 and Switch. To be honest, if it's on both of those, it's probably on Steam. Sam's on a mission to rescue his friend Vera and he needs your help. Join him in his exhilarating 3D platformer and fast roll, air grapple, and jump to save her.
So next up, and it'd be great to have people jump into the Discord and let us know what they think this game's going to be about. To the Rescue on PC, November the 4th. So jump into Discord, let us know what you think this game's about. And let's see if you're right. To the Rescue is a charming dog shelter simulator. Take care of unique dogs and find the right homes for as many of them as you can. Upgrade your shelter, control disease outbreaks, learn each dog's preference, and make tough decisions, all while helping to support real-world animal shelters.
Don't you dare say that we don't cover every age demographic in this, and every demographic, okay? If you were thinking about, I'm a little bit bored of my old dog shelter simulator game, we've got your back covered because here's To the Rescue coming out on PC November 4th. And it's not wishy-washy either, is it? Because it's a little bit like the prison simulator. You're not just stroking a dog, you're a little bit Nintendogs. You're upgrading shelter. You're controlling disease outbreaks. This is a serious game. The graphics suggest otherwise, but the gameplay tells a very different story.
Indeed.
Last but not least, bringing up the Vanguard here, it's Call of Duty Vanguard on the PC, PS5, Xbox Series of consoles, the PS4 and the Xbox One. Stadia fans sadly going to miss out on this one, but you know what? Probably played one, you've played them all. November 5th, the award-winning, that's got to hurt as well, hasn't it, if you're a developer? You keep banging out these games because that's what they tell you to bang out. You're probably sick of seeing guns. The award-winning Call of Duty series returns with Call of Duty Vanguard, in which players will experience influential battles of World War II as they fight for victory across the eastern and western fronts of Europe, the Pacific, and my favourite epoch of World War II, North Africa. That's the games out of the way. I think I picked a Mummy. I forget now. It's probably irrelevant. Sir Mike doesn't have to pick one because Sir Mike does whatever Sir Mike wants to do.
I'm very interested in To the Rescue. I feel like if I can do things like control disease outbreaks, that's something I can put on my CV.
Well, guess what? They've got a box quote. Sir Mike Rouse of the Unofficial Controller podcast. We'll let them make that up, you know, whatever. Maybe you're just Retro Gamer Boys where they'd find you easier. He's mildly interested in this. Perfect. Let me ask you this question. The tradition is that you come in, you pick a mummy, and then before we let the mysterious one leave, we pick a VHS.
Mm-hmm.
What VHS are you choosing this week, sir?
I'm picking up the 90s re-release of The Never-Ending Story that had a widescreen addition to it. Unfortunately, though, it turns out the version I picked was pirated, and I can only get in 15 minutes to the film before I just get noise.
Oh, that's unfortunate.
It is.
I got a copy of Indiana Jones off of him that halfway through cut into a Bruce's Price is Right.
Oh.
Yeah. It's a good episode, so I was okay with it.
Yeah, it's all right then.
Yeah. My mummy video VHS of choice is, I'm thinking on the spot here, I'm going to go with Space Jam. Keep that basketball theme alive.
Yes.
And with that done, as soon as Space Jam ends up in my fingers, what I thought I was looking at is no longer there. What I thought I was sure of, I'm no longer sure. What I thought I could believe in, I no longer know. He's gone. Was he ever here? I don't know. Check the tea. I feel he's put something in it. It's not the first time we've had our wicked way with you off air, Mike. It won't be the last. The only thing left to ask now, and it's the tradition, as you know, is, Sir Mike, what are you hoping to play?
I am hoping to play more modern games.
Okay. Is this like a New Year's resolution or what?
No, this is just every single day I sit down and think I'm going to play something on the PlayStation. I haven't got a PlayStation 5 at the moment.
Right.
Shock horror. I sit down and I've got about 30 unopened PlayStation 4 games. And every night I sit down with the intention to play them. And I end up jumping into my YouTube community and talking to them for a little bit, picking up an email from work and then dozing off. So at the point where I can actually get down and play some one or two modern games just to cleanse the palate, because I've been hardcore for the last 6 months in retro, would be nice.
Yeah. In the scale of the cellophane wrapping that exists on the shelf, which is the one that's most appealing to you? And then we'll cut back to the gaming but not gaming scenario.
Do you know I have so many? I got like Horizon is on there, the Final Fantasy's on there. I've got Titanfall 2 on there. I've got the Star Wars game on there. I've got the Watch Dogs games on there. I've got the Assassin's Creed games on there. I've got all the big hits that I should play are sitting there waiting for me and begging me to show them some love.
Like fine wine. Your future self will thank you. When the PlayStation 4's the Mega Drive and you've got those games sealed, one would imagine you would be that pretty much looked upon the same way as that guy that wandered into a prison with a, well, God,
With the Mega Drive.
1,200 Mega Drive games, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely.
One can hope.
Is there anything on Anstream that's distracting you on your lunch hour?
All the time. I'm always playing challenges. I think there's no one particular thing on Anstream because there's so much on there. I'm playing challenges. I am playing a lot of, not coughing, a lot of Dangang Fever on. Have you ever heard of that?
No, I haven't. That's one of the things about Anstream. I've normally got quite an encyclopedic knowledge of games, but Anstream leaves me feeling like I barely know one ad one.
Dangan Fever On is a amazing shoot 'em up, and I have rediscovered a love for shoot 'em ups by playing Anstream. I've always been scared of shoot 'em ups because or shmups, just because there lots of things flying on the screen. But through Anstream, I've rediscovered shmups, and I've actually even in my games room have a dedicated shmups wall now because of that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Have you shmups? I've always had a love-hate or more of a. No, I don't hate them. Like when I was younger, and much the same for you, 98% of the stuff, if it wasn't a platformer, it was some form of side-scrolling shooter game. And to be honest, it wore me a little thin. But not that long ago, I picked up Resogun for the Vita. Have you played that?
Yes, very nice.
Really good, really well put together as well. Really can't say enough about that. And on that note, and I don't know why it occupies a similar place in my mind because of the music design, but have you played Hades yet?
I have not played Hades yet, no.
Oh, you would love that so much. You would do like a half-hour love letter piece to it, I think, if you played it.
Okay. I'll get that on my wish list now then.
I really think it's right up your stream. It's a real piece of you. It needs someone with the dedicated gaming skills that you've got. But I think you would not breeze through it, but I think you'd find it a really rewarding experience. Really rewarding experience. Anything else? Or is that you?
I think that's me covered at the moment. I find myself stretched thin between work and doing YouTube. The great thing is that my work is making and running a retro video game service. So, I've made it mandatory that the whole company has to play on a Friday afternoon. We have to play through games on Anstream for an hour. So, at the very least, I've secured myself an hour's worth of retro gaming during work time.
To be honest, in any other industry, that would just be seen as a toss it off. But to be honest, if one member of staff discovers an absolute hidden gem that a challenge could be constructed around that literally set Anstream viral, then I think that is an hour well worth spent.
Yes.
Well worth spent, because it's those times when you're mining like that you will find that gold, something that you probably brought into Anstream on a Sunday afternoon on the 4th week of it being open, that just got swamped with some of the bigger stuff that they wanted to sweep up and sat there just begging to be played and appreciated. So you're not going to find that. You're only going to find that through your community or by playtesting rigorously every game. So applauded for that. I'm gonna mince through a little bit more Guardians of the Galaxy. I, much like you, have been finding that when I finally crash out from work, I feel so sort of despondent. I just kind of want to watch something for a bit. So then I find myself sucked into watching something on YouTube, normally gaming related, or if it's me, history. I'll go deep on, God knows, probably something in the 19th century, knowing me. And then it's like, it's too late to play a game. And I find that, in the rare moments I am in front of the PS5, I'm sometimes so apathetic towards it because I just don't want to now. I just can't do that now. Once you've dived into some community bits and you've written a bit of script for your upcoming, or whatever it is. It's quite an all-consuming beast. It has the potential to kind of kill your love of the business by your very involvement of being on the edge of the business and creating content on a weekly basis. That's a bit of a sick world, isn't it?
It's a bit of a sick world. It's a purgatory, I think, maybe.
That I get joy out of seeing people enjoy it, and I know that you do too, and that's probably one of the main reasons that we do it. And some of the messages that I've received, and no doubt you've received, that probably feel quite throwaway to people, or probably don't think we'll read it, but I see every message, and I see everything that people say, and just to know that an episode of the show, or I'm sure for you, one of your videos has got someone through a bad afternoon, or something they go to when they want to get cheered up. I mean, that's all you could ever ask for. Anything else is a bonus, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Wonderful. Mike, do you know what? I'm going to raise this to a 15. I bloody love having you on here. You're a great man to be around. You're an absolute pillar in the community. You're a steadfast God to your viewers on your YouTube channel. I said it before, I'll say it again. Anstream, absolutely lucky to have you. If you ever want to come back, and I'm thinking I'm going to ask on air, because do you know what? You got less chance to wriggle out of it. We normally do something special for Christmas. To have you on in a cameo role would be absolutely incredible. Maybe we'll see if we can get the band back together. I don't think Dave Perry from Games Master Fame's probably going to be reprising his role. He's way too much of a diva for that. You're an absolute legend in the business. I want to say thank you from me, from everyone that listens to the show. I want to thank you as well. You give us a lot of your time before. You've given us even more time again. You've pointed people in the direction of something that's free and wonderful, as well as your own Discord, as well as your own channel, as well as all that. You're only being a good egg. Mike, you're a legend. You were knighted before. I'm going to have to think of a loftier title. Thank you once again. If anyone wants to know where to find your stuff, it's obviously Retro Gamer Boy on YouTube, and it's anstream.co.com. Nearly threw in the UK abbreviation. It's not that, it's worldwide, it's .com. Don't mess about. It's a big boys website. They've paid for that. They've earned it. All right. Anstream.com, where the bigger boys go. Okay. 5,000 games, free of charge. You've come on. You've done really what's called a public service broadcast here, Mike.
Wow. I feel a radiant light passing through me just knowing that.
I love stuff delivered like that. Listen, that's all we have time for this week, listeners. As always, thank you for your time. I look forward to the pleasure of speaking to you again next week. Until then, happy gaming. Remember, there's nothing wrong with being given the unofficial controller. It's what you do with it that counts. Thank you, Mike. See you soon.
Thank you very much.